What if you are not lazy at all? What if the real reason you keep delaying, quitting, scrolling, and wasting your potential is that your mind has been trapped by comfort, easy rewards, fear, and habits you no longer notice? The problem is not that you cannot change. The problem is that you keep calling yourself lazy instead of discovering what is truly controlling you. In this audiobook, you will uncover 8 powerful truths that can break the trap, rebuild your self-trust, and turn you into a person of action. Listen carefully, because the life you want may be waiting behind the habit you keep excusing. 1. Comfort is quietly destroying the life you want. Comfort does not destroy your future in one dramatic moment. It destroys it quietly, through small decisions that feel harmless. You stay in bed a little longer, postpone the difficult task, avoid the uncomfortable conversation, and promise yourself that tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow often becomes another copy of today. The danger is not that comfort feels bad. The danger is that it feels safe, while slowly stealing your ambition, discipline, confidence, and time. Every meaningful goal demands something uncomfortable from you. Growth requires effort when you feel tired, action when you feel uncertain, and patience when results are invisible. The life you want is waiting on the other side of the work you keep avoiding. You do not need to punish yourself or live without rest, but you must learn the difference between recovery and escape. Rest gives you strength to continue. Escape gives you excuses to remain unchanged. Each time you choose temporary comfort over necessary action, you strengthen the habits keeping you trapped. Your future will not be built by what feels easiest today. It will be built by what you are willing to do despite discomfort. The moment you stop worshipping comfort, you begin creating a life you no longer need to escape from. 2. Your brain has become addicted to easy rewards. Your brain is not naturally lazy. It has simply learned to prefer rewards that arrive without effort. Every notification, short video, game, snack, and endless scroll gives you a quick burst of pleasure. These small rewards feel harmless, but they train your mind to expect excitement immediately. Then, when you sit down to study, exercise, write, build a business, or work toward a meaningful goal, your brain resists because real progress is slower. It demands patience before it gives you satisfaction. That is why a few minutes of focused work can feel harder than an hour of scrolling. The problem is not a lack of ability. Your reward system has been trained to choose what is easy, fast, and stimulating. To escape this trap, you must stop feeding every impulse the moment it appears. Put your phone out of reach, remove unnecessary distractions, and spend time doing work that feels boring before it feels rewarding. At first, your mind will search for an escape, but every time you stay focused, you rebuild your ability to handle effort. You are teaching your brain that pleasure does not always have to come first. Sometimes the reward must be earned. When you stop chasing constant stimulation, difficult work becomes lighter, your focus returns, and the future you once avoided begins to feel possible. 3. Waiting for motivation is keeping you trapped. Motivation feels powerful, but it is one of the most unreliable things you can build your future upon. Some mornings you wake up ready to work, improve, and change your life. On other days, even the smallest task feels heavy. When you only act after motivation appears, your progress becomes controlled by your mood. You begin postponing important work because you do not feel inspired, confident, energetic, or prepared. Days turn into weeks while you continue waiting for the perfect emotional state that rarely lasts. The truth is that motivation often comes after you begin, not before. The first step creates movement. Movement creates momentum, and momentum makes the task feel easier. You do not need to feel excited to open the book, begin the workout, write the first paragraph, or complete the difficult task. You only need to stop negotiating with the feeling that tells you to wait. People who transform their lives are not motivated every day. They simply refuse to let temporary emotions make permanent decisions for them. Start while you feel tired. Continue while the results are invisible. Do what matters, even when your mind offers excuses. Every time you act without waiting for motivation, you prove that your feelings do not control you. That is how discipline is born. Confidence becomes real, and the trap of endless delay finally loses its power. 4. You keep escaping the discomfort that would transform you. The discomfort you keep avoiding may be the exact doorway to the life you want. Every meaningful change asks you to face something difficult. Building a stronger body requires physical effort. Building a successful future requires long periods of focused work. Building confidence requires taking action before you feel ready. Building self-respect requires saying no, setting boundaries, and walking away from what weakens you. Yet each time discomfort appears, your mind searches for an escape. You check your phone, delay the task, change the plan, eat something, watch another video, or convince yourself that you will begin when you feel better. The escape gives you immediate relief, but that relief comes at a painful cost. You remain exactly where you are. Your brain often treats discomfort like danger, even when nothing dangerous is happening. A difficult task can create tension because you might fail. A new routine can feel exhausting because it removes familiar habits. A serious conversation can make you nervous because the other person may not approve of you. The moment these emotions appear, your mind tells you to stop. It says the work is too difficult, the timing is wrong, or you need more preparation. But discomfort is not always a warning. Sometimes it is evidence that you are stretching beyond the version of yourself that created your current life. Think about the goals you have delayed. Perhaps you wanted to become healthier, learn a valuable skill, build a business, complete your education, write something meaningful, or finally take control of your time. The actions required were probably not impossible. They were simply uncomfortable. Waking up earlier felt uncomfortable. Studying when others were relaxing felt uncomfortable. Continuing without praise felt uncomfortable. Facing your weaknesses felt uncomfortable. Instead of accepting that discomfort as part of growth, you may have interpreted it as a reason to quit. Every escape teaches your brain an important lesson. It teaches your mind that discomfort has authority over you. When you stop working the moment boredom appears, boredom becomes stronger. When you avoid every situation that creates fear, fear becomes more controlling. When you run from uncertainty, you become dependent on guarantees that life will never provide. The more often you escape, the less discomfort you can tolerate. Eventually, ordinary responsibilities begin to feel unbearable because your mind has become accustomed to comfort. Transformation requires reversing this pattern. You must begin teaching your brain that discomfort can be survived. This does not mean you must become cruel to yourself or ignore genuine exhaustion. It means you stop treating every unpleasant feeling like an emergency. When a task feels boring, remain with it for 10 more minutes. When your mind says, "Do it tomorrow," complete one small part today. When fear tells you that you are not ready, take one controlled step forward. The goal is not to eliminate discomfort. The goal is to stop allowing discomfort to decide your behavior. You also need to understand the difference between pain that damages you and discomfort that develops you. Abuse, serious injury, and destructive environments should never be glorified as growth. But effort, uncertainty, discipline, honest feedback, temporary embarrassment, and the struggle of learning are different. These experiences may hurt your pride or challenge your habits, but they can also strengthen you. Wisdom is knowing when to protect yourself and when to push yourself. The first stage of change often feels worse before it feels better. When you reduce distractions, silence can feel empty. When you begin exercising, your body may feel weak. When you start working seriously, your lack of focus becomes obvious. When you set boundaries, some people may become angry because they benefited from your lack of them. This early resistance does not mean your decision is wrong. It often means your old patterns are losing control. You cannot expect your old life to disappear without protest. The habits that kept you comfortable will try to pull you back. Your mind will remind you how easy it was to avoid responsibility. It will romanticize the routine that made you unhappy simply because it was familiar. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar progress. That is why many people return to habits they claim to hate. They are not choosing what is best, they are choosing what they recognize. Real growth begins when you stop confusing familiarity with safety. The version of you that avoids discomfort may feel protected, but it is also imprisoned. It cannot discover new strength because it never tests itself. It cannot build confidence because it never keeps difficult promises. It cannot create a better future because it repeatedly sacrifices long-term progress for short-term relief. Confidence does not come from telling yourself that you are capable. It comes from evidence. Each time you remain focused when you want to escape, you create evidence. Each time you finish something difficult, you create evidence. Each time you face uncertainty without running, you create evidence. Slowly, your identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who always quits, delays, or hides. You begin seeing yourself as someone who can endure discomfort without collapsing. This is why small acts of courage matter. You do not need to transform your entire life in one day. You need to interrupt the escape pattern. Sit with the difficult task a little longer. Make the uncomfortable phone call. Apply for the opportunity before you feel fully qualified. Exercise even if the session is imperfect. Speak honestly instead of hiding behind silence. Remove the distraction instead of testing your willpower every 5 minutes. Small moments of voluntary discomfort build the strength required for larger challenges. There will be days when you fail. You may return to old distractions, delay an important task, or choose comfort again. Do not use one weak decision as permission to abandon the entire process. Notice what happened, correct it quickly, and continue. The goal is not perfect behavior. The goal is becoming less willing to escape every time life demands effort. Ask yourself a difficult question. What has avoiding discomfort already cost you? It may have cost you years of progress, missed opportunities, damaged self-trust, and a future that keeps getting postponed. The comfort you protected may have become more painful than the work you avoided. You may now be carrying regret, frustration, and disappointment that are heavier than the original discomfort would have been. The pain of discipline is usually temporary. The pain of remaining stuck can last for years. One asks you to struggle today so tomorrow can improve. The other gives you relief today and sends the consequences into your future. Every day, you are choosing between these two forms of pain. The next time discomfort appears, do not immediately ask how to remove it. Ask what it may be trying to build inside you. Perhaps it is building patience, focus, courage, emotional control, or strength. Perhaps the difficult task in front of you is not blocking your transformation. Perhaps it is your transformation. You do not become powerful by avoiding every hard moment. You become powerful by discovering that hard moments do not own you. Stay when your old habits tell you to run. Begin when fear tells you to wait. Continue when boredom tells you to quit. The discomfort will not last forever, but the person you become by facing it may change the rest of your life. 5. Overthinking is making simple tasks feel impossible. Overthinking has a dangerous ability to make a small task feel like an impossible burden. The work may only require one phone call, one page, one application, one conversation, or 1 hour of focused effort, yet your mind turns it into a mountain. Before you begin, you imagine everything that could go wrong. You question whether you are ready, whether your work will be good enough, whether people will judge you, whether you might fail, and whether your effort will even matter. By the time you finish thinking, you feel exhausted without having taken a single step. This is why overthinking often looks like laziness from the outside. People see you delaying, avoiding, and doing nothing. They may assume that you do not care or that you lack discipline, But inside your mind, there is constant activity. You are replaying possibilities, predicting problems, searching for certainty, and trying to create the perfect plan. The problem is that none of this mental movement produces real progress. Your thoughts remain busy while your life remains still. You may tell yourself that you are preparing, but preparation has a limit. There comes a moment when more thinking stops helping and begins protecting you from action. You keep researching because beginning would expose your ability. You keep adjusting the plan because execution could reveal mistakes. You keep waiting for clarity because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. The longer you remain in preparation, the more frightening the first step becomes. A simple task becomes heavy when you mentally carry every future step at once. Imagine that you want to write a book. Instead of focusing on the first paragraph, your mind thinks about every chapter: the editing, the cover, the audience, the criticism, the sales, and the possibility that nobody will care. You are trying to complete the entire journey inside your head before taking the first step in reality. No wonder you feel overwhelmed. The same pattern appears in everyday life. You want to exercise, but instead of putting on your shoes and walking for 15 minutes, you start thinking about months of training, strict diets, possible injuries, missed days, and how long results will take. You want to learn a new skill, but you immediately compare yourself to experts who have practiced for years. You want to make an important call, but you rehearse every possible response until the conversation feels dangerous. The task is not defeating you. The story you are building around the task is defeating you. Overthinking often begins as an attempt to protect yourself. Your mind believes that if it considers every possibility, it can prevent failure, rejection, embarrassment, or disappointment. It wants guarantees before you move, but life rarely gives guarantees. You can prepare carefully and still face surprises. You can make a wise decision and still experience difficulty. You can give your best effort and still fail. When you demand complete certainty, you create a condition that can never be satisfied. This is how overthinking becomes a trap. You are waiting for the fear to disappear before you begin. But fear usually disappears after movement, not before it. You are waiting for the path to become completely clear, but clarity often arrives one step at a time. You are waiting to feel confident, but confidence grows from experience. Everything you are waiting for is hidden inside the action you keep avoiding. The first way to escape overthinking is to reduce the size of the decision. Stop asking, "How will I complete all of this?" Ask, "What is the next visible action?" Not the entire plan, not the final result, not every possible problem, only the next action. If you need to study, open the book and read one page. If you need to write, create one imperfect paragraph. If you need to clean, choose one small area. If you need to apply for an opportunity, open the form and complete the first section. If you need to have a difficult conversation, write down the one truth that must be expressed. Small actions give your mind less space to create unnecessary fear. You must also stop treating every decision like a permanent judgment on your intelligence. Sometimes you will make the wrong choice. Sometimes your first attempt will be weak. Sometimes you will need to correct your direction. This is not evidence that you should have waited longer. It is evidence that progress is a process of adjustment. People who move forward are not always more certain than you. They are often simply more willing to act without certainty. They understand that action produces information. A plan can look perfect in your imagination and fail in reality. Another plan can look incomplete but become successful because it was tested, improved, and repeated. Thinking can suggest a direction, but only action reveals the road. Perfectionism makes overthinking even stronger. You may believe that if you cannot do something exceptionally well, there is no reason to begin. You want the first attempt to look like the work of someone with years of experience. You expect yourself to avoid the embarrassment of being a beginner. But every skilled person was once unprepared, uncertain, and imperfect. Their advantage was not that they began brilliantly. Their advantage was that they allowed themselves to begin badly. An imperfect action can be improved. An action that never happens cannot. A weak first draft can become stronger. An unwritten page remains empty. A poor workout can still strengthen your body. A workout you only planned changes nothing. An awkward conversation can create clarity. A conversation you endlessly rehearse may leave the problem untouched for years. Overthinking also steals energy by making you live through the same difficulty repeatedly. You experience the fear before the task. You experience it again while imagining failure. You experience it again while postponing the decision. Then, when you finally act, you discover that the real experience was often easier than the mental version. You suffered 10 times for a problem that only needed to be faced once. Think about how many situations in your life were worse in anticipation than in reality. The call you feared lasted 5 minutes. The task you avoided took less than an hour. The rejection hurt, but it did not destroy you. The conversation was uncomfortable, yet it brought relief. Your mind is capable of creating emotional pain from events that have not happened and may never happen. This does not mean you should stop thinking carefully. Thought is valuable when it leads to a decision. Planning is useful when it leads to execution. Reflection is powerful when it improves your next action. But thinking without movement becomes a form of avoidance. The question is not whether you should think. The question is whether your thinking is serving action or replacing it. Set a limit for decisions that do not require endless analysis. Give yourself a specific amount of time to consider the facts. Choose the best available option and move. Not every choice deserves days of mental debate. Some decisions can be corrected later. Some paths can be adjusted. Some mistakes are less dangerous than years of hesitation. You should also learn to separate facts from imagined outcomes. A fact may be, I have never done this before. The imagined conclusion is, I will fail and embarrass myself. A fact may be, this person may reject my request. The imagined conclusion is, I will never recover and everyone will think I am weak. A fact may be, this project will require effort. The imagined conclusion is, it will be unbearable and I will never finish. When you notice these thoughts, ask yourself, what do I actually know and what am I inventing? This question brings you back to reality. Reality may still be challenging, but it is usually smaller than the disaster your mind has created. Another reason you overthink is that you are trying to protect your identity. If you never fully try, you can continue believing that you have great potential. Action creates the risk of discovering your current limitations. That can feel painful. But potential that is never tested becomes a comfortable story, not a meaningful life. You must be willing to see where you are weak. You must be willing to produce work that does not yet match your vision. You must be willing to learn in public, improve slowly, and feel like a beginner. Your current limitations are not a final verdict. They are simply the starting point that action reveals. Overthinking tells you that mistakes will destroy your confidence. In reality, avoiding action destroys confidence more deeply. Every time you delay something important because of fear, you teach yourself that you cannot be trusted under pressure. Every time you act despite uncertainty, you create proof that you can handle discomfort, correction, and imperfect outcomes. Confidence grows when you survive what you once feared. It grows when you discover that embarrassment is temporary, rejection is survivable, and mistakes can be repaired. It does not grow from imagining successful outcomes. It grows from entering uncertain situations and learning that you can respond. Your environment can also feed overthinking. Too much advice, too many opinions, and constant comparison can make simple choices confusing. One person tells you to move quickly, another tells you to wait. One expert recommends one method, another says the opposite. The more voices you collect, the less you hear your own judgment. There is a time to learn, and there is a time to close the information and work. You do not need another video, another book, another opinion, or another perfect strategy every time you feel uncertain. Sometimes the next lesson is only available through direct experience. Be careful about discussing every goal before you begin. Talking can create a false sense of progress. You explain your plans, receive encouragement, imagine the result, and feel emotionally rewarded without doing the work. Then, when it is time to act, your energy has already been spent in conversation. Protect some goals from unnecessary discussion. Let action carry the excitement. Overthinking also becomes stronger when your days have no structure. If every task is optional and every decision is made according to mood, your mind gets endless opportunities to negotiate. Decide in advance when important work will happen. Give the task a place in your day. A scheduled action requires less debate than a vague intention. Instead of waking up and asking whether you feel ready to work, decide that you will begin at a certain time. Instead of thinking about exercise all day, choose the hour and prepare your clothes. Instead of repeatedly wondering when you will write, create a protected block of time. Structure reduces the number of decisions your mind can turn into drama. When the moment arrives, begin before the internal argument grows. The longer you stand at the edge of a task, the more convincing your excuses become. Use a simple rule. When you know the next action, move within a few seconds. Open the file, stand up, put on the shoes, make the call. Action interrupts the cycle before fear builds momentum. Do not expect your mind to become silent. You may still hear doubt, criticism, and imagine disasters. The goal is not to remove every thought before you act. The goal is to stop obeying every thought. A thought can exist without becoming a command. Your mind may say, "This will be difficult." You can respond, "I will do the next part." It may say, "You could fail." You can answer, "Then I will learn what needs improvement." It may say, "You are not ready." You can decide, "Readiness will grow through practice." You are not required to believe every prediction your mind produces. Your brain is trying to protect you, but it often uses old fears to evaluate new opportunities. Thank it for the warning, examine the facts, and move anyway when the risk is reasonable. There is a powerful freedom in accepting that you cannot control every outcome. You can control your preparation, your effort, your honesty, and your response. You cannot control every opinion, every result, every delay, or every surprise. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, much of your mental pressure disappears. Your responsibility is not to guarantee success. Your responsibility is to take the best next step with the information you have. That is enough. The future will reveal what must be changed. Look at the areas where you feel most stuck. Ask yourself whether the task is truly impossible or whether you have been mentally carrying too much of it at once. Perhaps you do not need a better plan. Perhaps you need a smaller first step. Perhaps you do not need more confidence. Perhaps you need one action that creates confidence. Perhaps you do not need complete certainty. Perhaps you need courage for the next 10 minutes. The life you want will not be built entirely inside your head. It must be built through decisions, repetitions, attempts, corrections, and unfinished beginnings. You will think your way toward a direction, but you must act your way toward transformation. The next time a simple task begins to feel impossible, stop and identify the real work in front of you. Remove the imagined future, remove the demand for perfection, remove the need to impress anyone. Then ask, what can I do right now? Do that one thing before your mind creates another excuse. You do not need to solve your entire life today. You need to stop allowing thought to replace movement. Your future is not waiting for a perfect version of you. It is waiting for the current version of you to begin. 6. Broken promises are destroying your self-trust. The most damaging promises are not always the ones other people break. Sometimes, the deepest damage comes from the promises you repeatedly make to yourself and quietly abandon. You say you will wake up early, begin the project, Stop wasting time. Exercise, study, save money, protect your focus, or finally change the habit that has been controlling you. In the moment, the decision feels sincere. You imagine a stronger version of yourself taking control. But when discomfort arrives, the promise becomes negotiable. You delay it, reduce it, forget it, or replace it with another promise about tomorrow. At first, this may not seem serious. Missing one workout does not destroy your health. Delaying one task does not ruin your future. Sleeping late one morning does not make you a failure. The danger begins when breaking your word becomes a pattern. Each abandoned commitment sends a message to your mind. What I say cannot be trusted. Over time, that message becomes part of your identity. This is why you may feel unmotivated before you even begin. It is not always because the goal is too difficult. A part of you remembers every previous attempt that ended in avoidance. You have announced change many times, but your actions have repeatedly contradicted your words. Your mind has learned not to become excited because it expects you to quit again. Imagine having a friend who constantly promises to help you but never arrives. At first, you believe them. The second time, you become cautious. After enough broken promises, their words lose all value. They may speak with confidence, apologize sincerely, and make another beautiful commitment, but you no longer trust them. This is exactly what can happen inside you. The person making the promise and the person being disappointed are both you. You may stand in front of the mirror and say, "This time will be different." But somewhere beneath those words, doubt answers, "You have said that before." That doubt is not proof that you are weak. It is the natural result of repeated evidence. Your mind believes patterns more than speeches. Self-trust is built when your actions confirm your decisions. It is destroyed when your decisions repeatedly disappear under pressure. Every time you keep a promise, even a small one, you create evidence that you can depend on yourself. Every time you break one without a serious reason, you create the opposite evidence. This is why confidence cannot be built through positive thinking alone. You can repeat powerful statements, listen to motivational speeches, and imagine success. But if you continue ignoring your own commitments, the words will feel empty. Confidence grows when you become reliable to yourself. It grows when you say you will do something and then watch yourself do it. The problem is that many people make promises based on emotion rather than reality. After feeling inspired, they create a plan so extreme that it cannot survive an ordinary day. They decide they will wake up at 5, exercise for 2 hours, read 50 pages, avoid every distraction, work without rest, and completely rebuild their life overnight. The plan feels powerful because it is dramatic, but it is not designed for the days when energy is low, responsibilities increase, or motivation disappears. When the impossible plan fails, they do not blame the plan. They blame themselves. They say, "I have no discipline. I always quit. I am lazy." Then they create an even more dramatic plan to repair the disappointment. The cycle continues. Emotional promise, unrealistic expectations, failure, shame, and another emotional promise. You do not rebuild self-trust by making bigger commitments. You rebuild it by making promises small enough to keep and important enough to matter. Instead of promising to transform your entire body in 1 month, promise to move for 20 minutes today. Instead of promising to write a complete book, promise to write 1 focused page. Instead of saying you will never waste time again, choose 1 hour that will remain protected. A small promise kept is more valuable than a massive promise abandoned. The size of the action matters less than the evidence it creates. Each completed commitment tells your mind, "When I decide, I follow through." That message becomes stronger through repetition. You may resist small beginnings because they do not feel impressive. 10 minutes of exercise seems insignificant compared with the transformation you want. 1 page seems too small compared with the finished project in your imagination. But your first responsibility is not to impress yourself. It is to become trustworthy again. A person who keeps one small promise every day will eventually become more powerful than someone who makes heroic promises once a month. The first person is building an identity. The second person is chasing an emotional experience. You must also stop making casual promises to yourself. Do not say, "I will definitely do it tomorrow," simply to relieve the guilt of avoiding it today. Tomorrow is not a place where discipline suddenly appears. Tomorrow will contain the same mind, the same habits, and many of the same temptations. If you are unwilling to complete even a small part today, another promise about the future may only be an escape. When you notice yourself postponing a task, ask, "What can I still complete before this day ends?" You may not have enough time or energy for the original plan, but you can protect the relationship you have with yourself by doing something. 5 focused minutes may not complete the goal, but they prove that the promise was not completely abandoned. This does not mean every commitment must be kept regardless of circumstances. Life changes, illness, emergencies, unexpected responsibilities, and genuine exhaustion can require adjustment. Self-trust does not mean becoming rigid or punishing yourself for being human. It means you do not use minor discomfort as if it were an emergency. It means you change a promise consciously rather than quietly escaping it. There is a difference between adjusting and abandoning. Adjustment says, "I cannot complete the full hour today, but I will do 15 minutes. Abandonment says, "Today is difficult, so nothing matters." Adjustment protects continuity. Abandonment strengthens avoidance. You should also learn to stop promising outcomes you cannot fully control. You cannot always promise that you will succeed, become wealthy, receive approval, or achieve a specific result by a certain date. You can promise the actions under your control. You can promise to show up, prepare honestly, practice, finish the application, protect the work period, and continue after setbacks. When your promises depend on outcomes, failure can make you feel powerless. When they depend on behavior, you remain responsible and capable. You may not control whether someone accepts your work, but you control whether you complete it. You may not control how quickly your body changes, but you control whether you train. You may not control when success arrives, but you control whether you continue becoming worthy of it. Broken promises often create shame, and shame makes action harder. You remember how many times you failed, and instead of beginning again, you attack your character. You tell yourself that you are unreliable, weak, hopeless, or incapable of change. These labels may feel like honesty, but they usually make the problem worse. When you turn a failed action into a permanent identity, you remove the possibility of correction. Saying, "I broke this promise," identifies a behavior. Saying, "I am a failure," attacks the entire person. One statement can guide improvement. The other creates paralysis. You need accountability without cruelty. Admit when you failed. Do not hide behind excuses or pretend the promise was unimportant. Examine what happened. Was the plan unrealistic? Did you leave distractions within reach? Did you depend on motivation? Did you fail to schedule the task? Did you avoid a difficult emotion? Find the cause, improve the system, and make a more intelligent commitment. Self-forgiveness is not permission to repeat the same behavior. It is the decision to stop wasting energy on shame and use it for repair. You can forgive yourself while still demanding better. You can acknowledge that yesterday was weak without allowing today to become another copy. One powerful way to rebuild self-trust is to create a daily non-negotiable. Choose one action so clear that there is no confusion about whether it was completed. It might be writing 300 words, walking for 20 minutes, reading 10 pages, studying for 30 minutes, or working on your most important goal before opening social media. Keep the action simple. Do not change it every few days. Do not increase it because one good day made you feel unstoppable. Let repetition build credibility. The purpose is not immediate transformation. The purpose is proving that you can become dependable. Track the promise visibly. Mark each completed day, write it in a notebook, or record the actions somewhere you can see. This is not childish, it gives your mind evidence. You are replacing the memory of unfinished plans with a growing record of completion. Do not become obsessed with an unbroken chain. One missed day should not erase the progress that came before it. The real rule should be, never allow one mistake to become a pattern. Return quickly. The speed of your return matters more than maintaining a perfect record. Many people lose self-trust because they believe missing once means the entire plan has failed. They eat one unhealthy meal and abandon the week. They miss one morning and give up the routine. They lose focus for 1 hour and waste the rest of the day. This all-or-nothing thinking creates more damage than the original mistake. A broken moment does not require a broken day. A broken day does not require a broken week. You can return at the next decision. The ability to repair quickly is one of the strongest forms of discipline. You also need to examine the promises you keep making for the approval of others. Perhaps you commit to goals that do not truly matter to you because they sound impressive. You say you want a certain career, body, lifestyle, or achievement because other people admire it. But when it is time to work, you feel no meaningful connection to the goal. Not every failure to follow through is laziness. Sometimes it is a sign that the promise does not belong to you. You cannot build a powerful life by constantly chasing goals chosen by other people. Ask yourself whether the commitment reflects your values or only your desire to appear successful. A real promise should connect to a reason strong enough to survive inconvenience. Why do you want to become healthier? Why does the project matter? Why must you protect your time? Why are you trying to become more disciplined? When the reason is shallow, discomfort wins easily. When the reason is personal and clear, effort becomes more meaningful. Write your reason down. Not a polished sentence designed to impress anyone. Write the truth. Perhaps you are tired of disappointing yourself. Perhaps you want to protect your family, regain your health, escape financial dependence, create something meaningful, or stop wasting years in the same cycle. A clear reason gives your promise emotional weight. Still, a strong reason cannot replace a workable system. You may care deeply and continue failing if your environment makes failure easy. If you promise to focus but keep your phone beside you, you are forcing discipline to fight temptation every minute. If you promise to wake early but sleep at random times, the morning promise has already been weakened. If you promise to save money but make spending effortless, your intentions will struggle. Build an environment that supports your word. Remove the app, prepare the workspace, place the book where you will see it, set the clothes out, block the time, tell people when you are unavailable. Make the desired action easier to begin and the unwanted habit harder to reach. Keeping promises becomes easier when you stop depending on repeated decisions. Decide once, then allow the system to carry you. If you choose a fixed hour for focused work, you do not need to debate every day. If you prepare the night before, the morning requires less effort. Structure protects promises from mood. There will still be resistance. A system cannot remove every difficult feeling, but it reduces the number of opportunities you have to betray your intention. Discipline grows when the path is clear. Be careful about announcing every promise publicly. Telling people about your plan can create a temporary feeling of achievement. Their praise rewards you before the work has happened. You feel like the new person because you described the new person. Then the urgency to prove it through action becomes weaker. Let some promises remain private. Allow the result to reveal the commitment. You do not need witnesses for every beginning. Your first responsibility is to make your word valuable to yourself. The relationship you have with yourself affects every part of your life. When you trust yourself, decisions become lighter. You know that even if the path is difficult, you will continue. You know that if you fail, you will correct yourself. You know that you will not abandon your future for every temporary feeling. Without self-trust, even simple goals feel uncertain. You may create a plan but doubt whether you will follow it. You may receive an opportunity but fear that you will waste it. You may desire change but avoid beginning because another failure feels too painful. Your past behavior becomes a voice that questions every new intention. That voice can be changed, but not through argument. You change it through evidence. Do not tell yourself you are disciplined. Show yourself. Do not claim that everything will be different. Complete today's promise. Let your identity be built by proof. At first, the evidence may seem small. You got out of bed when you said you would. You completed 20 minutes of work. You closed the distraction. You finished the task before rewarding yourself. These actions may not look dramatic, but they are rebuilding something fundamental. Each kept promise becomes a brick. One brick does not create a strong foundation, but repeated bricks do. Eventually, you stop feeling like someone who is trying to change. You begin feeling like someone who follows through. This identity changes the way you respond to difficulty. When a hard day comes, you do not immediately ask whether you can continue. You remember that you have continued before. When motivation disappears, you rely on your record. When temptation appears, your word becomes more important than the temporary reward. There is power in becoming the person who can trust their own decisions. You no longer need a constant speech, a perfect mood, or someone standing beside you. You may still appreciate encouragement, but you are no longer dependent upon it. Begin with one promise today. Make it specific, realistic, and fully within your control. Do not choose something dramatic. Choose something you can complete, even if the day becomes difficult. Then keep it without negotiation. Tomorrow, do it again. Do not chase a perfect life. Rebuild a trustworthy relationship with yourself. Once your word becomes strong, your habits will become stronger. Your confidence will stop depending on fantasy. Your goals will no longer feel like empty wishes. You are not trapped because you lack potential. You are trapped because too many promises have been made without proof. The way out is not another emotional declaration. The way out is one completed commitment, followed by another. Keep your word today, and you begin changing the person you will be tomorrow. 7. Fear of failure is disguising itself as laziness. Sometimes the reason you delay is not because you do not care. It is because you care so deeply that failure feels unbearable. You want the result to prove that you are capable, intelligent, talented, disciplined, and worthy. The task is no longer just a task. It becomes a test of your identity. If you succeed, you feel validated. If you fail, you fear that every hidden doubt about yourself will become true. That is why you avoid beginning. From the outside, this avoidance looks like laziness. You postpone the work, distract yourself, sleep longer, scroll endlessly, and keep saying you will start later. People may think you lack ambition. You may even begin to believe that about yourself. But beneath the delay, there is often fear. You are not always running from effort. Sometimes you are running from the possibility that your effort may not be enough. As long as you do not fully try, you can protect the story of your potential. You can tell yourself, I could have succeeded if I had really focused. You can blame the timing, your mood, the distractions, or the lack of preparation. Not trying gives you an excuse. Full effort removes that protection. This creates a painful trap. You want success, but you also want to avoid discovering your current limitations. You want progress, but you do not want to feel like a beginner. You want confidence, but you refuse to enter the situations where confidence is built. You remain attached to the idea of what you could become, while avoiding the work that would reveal what must improve. Potential can feel comforting because it has not yet been tested. In your imagination, you can be extraordinary. You can picture the finished project, the successful business, the transformed body, the admired talent, or the disciplined life. Reality is less comfortable. Reality requires repetition. It exposes weaknesses. It forces you to confront the distance between your vision and your present ability. Many people prefer the dream because the dream cannot criticize them. A blank page cannot reveal weak writing until you place words upon it. An unopened application cannot reject you. A business that remains an idea cannot fail. A conversation you never begin cannot expose your vulnerability. Avoidance preserves possibility, but it also prevents progress. Fear often speaks in reasonable language. It rarely says, "I am terrified of failing." Instead, it says, "I need more time." It says, "I should research a little more." It says, "The timing is not right." It says, "I will begin when I feel confident." It says, "I need a better plan." These thoughts may contain some truth, but fear can use them to keep moving the starting line. Preparation is valuable, but preparation without a deadline becomes hiding. Learning is useful, but endless learning without practice becomes avoidance. Planning matters, but a plan that is never tested becomes a fantasy. You need to ask yourself an honest question. Am I truly preparing, or am I delaying the moment when my ability will be judged? Fear of failure becomes stronger when you believe success should happen quickly. You may compare your beginning with someone else's advanced stage and assume that your early work proves you have no talent. You forget that skill is usually invisible while it is being built. You see the finished performance, but not the hundreds of weak attempts that created it. Your first effort may be disappointing. That is normal. The problem is not producing something imperfect. The problem is believing that the imperfect result is a final statement about who you are. A first attempt is information. It shows you what needs work. It reveals gaps that imagination cannot reveal. It gives you something real to improve. Without that first attempt, you remain trapped in guessing. Failure is not always the opposite of success. Often, it is part of the process that makes success possible. A failed attempt may show you that the method is wrong, the timing needs adjustment, the skill needs development, or the goal requires a different strategy. It can be painful, but it can also be precise. It tells you what fantasy cannot. The person who fails and learns is often closer to success than the person who waits perfectly prepared. Action produces feedback. Feedback produces correction. Correction produces growth. You must stop treating failure like humiliation. Failure is an event, not an identity. You can fail at a task without becoming a failure as a person. You can make a poor decision without being permanently foolish. You can perform badly without proving that you will always be bad. The sentence, "I failed," describes something that happened. The sentence, "I am a failure," turns one result into a life sentence. These are not the same. Fear loves permanent conclusions. One rejection becomes, "Nobody will choose me." One weak performance becomes, "I have no talent." One setback becomes, "Nothing works for me." One mistake becomes, "I always ruin everything." These statements feel emotionally true, but they are rarely factually accurate. Your mind wants certainty, and negative certainty can feel safer than uncertainty. If you decide that you are incapable, you no longer have to risk trying. You can retreat into a familiar identity. It may be painful, but it protects you from new disappointment. This is how fear disguises itself as laziness. It creates a reason to remain still, then blames you for not moving. You may need to examine when this pattern began. Perhaps you were criticized harshly when you made mistakes. Perhaps approval was given only when you performed well. Perhaps you learned that being wrong was embarrassing. Maybe people compared you with others, laughed at your attempts, or made you feel that your worth depended on success. When mistakes are treated like evidence of personal weakness, you learn to avoid situations where mistakes are possible. You choose tasks you already know how to do. You remain within familiar limits. You avoid being seen as inexperienced. This may protect your pride, but it also keeps your life small. Growth requires entering rooms where you are not the strongest person. It requires asking questions that reveal what you do not know. It requires allowing your work to be corrected. It requires accepting that improvement may look awkward before it looks impressive. You cannot become excellent while demanding never to look inexperienced. The fear of other people's opinions makes this even harder. You may not only fear failing, you may fear being watched while you fail. You imagine people judging your attempt, discussing your mistakes, or feeling satisfied when you struggle. Ask yourself how much power you are willing to give those imagined opinions. Will you sacrifice your future to avoid a few moments of embarrassment? Will you remain trapped because someone may misunderstand your beginning? People will have opinions whether you act or not. Some will criticize your effort. Others will criticize your lack of effort. You cannot build your life around controlling every reaction. Most people are thinking about themselves far more than they are thinking about you. The mistake that keeps you awake may be forgotten by others within hours. Even when someone judges you, their judgment does not determine your potential. The people who mock beginners often remain beginners in their own lives because they are too afraid to be seen trying. Do not take direction from spectators who refuse to enter the arena. There is also a deeper fear. What if you succeed and can no longer return to your old life? Success brings responsibility. It may require higher standards, stronger boundaries, more visibility, and greater expectations. Part of you may fear the person you would need to become. You may say you want change, but familiar struggle can feel safer than unfamiliar success. Your current identity may be painful, yet predictable. Success can threaten relationships, routines, and beliefs that have shaped you for years. This is why some people sabotage progress when it begins to appear. They delay the next step, return to old habits, or create unnecessary problems. They are not only afraid of failure, they are afraid of transformation. Whether you fear failure or success, the solution begins with separating your identity from the outcome. Your worth cannot depend entirely on whether one project succeeds, one person approves, or one attempt works. When the outcome becomes a verdict on your value, the pressure becomes unbearable. You need a stronger definition of success. Success is not always winning immediately. Sometimes success is completing the attempt honestly. Sometimes it is showing up despite fear. Sometimes it is learning something important. Sometimes it is refusing to abandon yourself after disappointment. When your definition of success includes courage, effort, learning, and recovery, failure loses some of its power. The result still matters, but it no longer controls your entire identity. You should also reduce the emotional size of the task. Fear becomes overwhelming when every attempt feels like the moment that will decide my life. Most decisions are not that final. Most attempts can be repeated. Most skills can be improved. Most paths can be adjusted. Tell yourself, this is an experiment. An experiment does not demand perfection. It seeks information. Instead of asking, will I succeed? Ask, what will this attempt teach me? That shift changes the task from judgment to discovery. Imagine you want to start creating content. If every video must prove that you are talented, the pressure will make you delay. But if the first 10 videos are experiments, you can study what works. You can improve the script, presentation, title, and delivery. The result becomes data rather than a personal verdict. The same applies to studying, business, fitness, relationships, and creative work. Every attempt can teach you something. Even rejection can provide clarity. Even a mistake can strengthen judgment. Fear weakens when action becomes smaller and more frequent. One enormous attempt can feel terrifying. 10 small attempts create experience. The first call may feel impossible. The 10th will feel more familiar. The first public effort may feel humiliating. Repetition reduces the emotional intensity. Exposure teaches your nervous system that discomfort is survivable. Avoidance teaches it that the situation must have been dangerous. Every time you run, fear receives confirmation. Every time you remain, act, and recover. fear loses authority. You do not need to eliminate fear before moving. You need to move while fear is present. Courage is not a feeling of complete confidence. It is the decision that something matters more than comfort. Many people wait for courage to arrive like motivation. They imagine a future day when doubt disappears and action feels easy. That day may never come. Courage is often created in the exact moment you choose to act while your mind is still afraid. The hands may shake, the voice may feel uncertain, the work may be imperfect. You can still proceed. You should prepare for failure instead of pretending it will never happen. Ask yourself, if this does not work, what will I do next? This question reduces the fear of catastrophe. You begin to see that one outcome does not end the journey. If the application is rejected, you can improve it and submit another. If the project performs poorly, you can study the response and adjust. If the conversation goes badly, you can reflect and communicate more clearly. If the routine breaks, you can return. A recovery plan reminds you that you are not helpless. You cannot control every outcome, but you can control your response. Your ability to recover matters more than your ability to avoid every setback. People who achieve meaningful things are not people who never fail. They are people who refuse to let failure become permanent. This requires emotional discipline. After a setback, your mind may want to exaggerate what happened. It may say, "This proves I should stop." Do not make permanent decisions while experiencing temporary disappointment. Give yourself space to feel the pain, but do not build an identity from it. Review the event when your emotions settle. Ask, what worked? What failed? What was within my control? What needs to change? What should I repeat? What must I stop doing? What is the next attempt? These questions transform failure into instruction. Be careful about using self-criticism as motivation. You may believe that insulting yourself will force improvement. You call yourself lazy, weak, useless, or undisciplined. Perhaps the attack creates temporary urgency, but over time it makes action feel dangerous. Every attempt becomes another opportunity to be punished. You need standards, but you also need psychological safety within yourself. You should be able to make a mistake without becoming your own enemy. Accountability says, "This was not good enough. I must improve." Self-destruction says, "I am not good enough. There is no point." The first creates action. The second creates avoidance. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for developing. A strong coach does not ignore weakness, but they also do not destroy the person trying to improve. They correct, challenge, encourage, and demand another attempt. You must become that voice for yourself. Fear of failure often causes procrastination because delay protects you from emotional exposure. The deadline is far away, so you avoid the work. As the deadline approaches, pressure becomes stronger than fear, and you finally begin. Then you work in panic. This pattern teaches you that you can only act under extreme pressure. You may even believe you perform better at the last minute. In reality, urgency simply removes your opportunity to overthink. You are forced into action. You can recreate this clarity without waiting for crisis. Set smaller deadlines, break the work into visible stages, decide what must be completed by the end of the day. Externalize the task so it does not remain vague. Fear grows in vagueness. A clear action is easier to face than a large, undefined goal. Work on my future is vague. Complete the first page by 10 a.m. is clear. Get healthy is vague. Walk for 20 minutes after dinner is clear. Start a business is vague. Contact 3 possible clients today is clear. Clarity gives fear less room to create monsters. You also need to stop waiting for permission. Fear may convince you that you need someone to confirm that you are ready. You seek approval from family, friends, experts, or strangers. Encouragement can help, but there comes a point when seeking another opinion becomes avoidance. No one can guarantee your success. No one can remove all risk. Sometimes you must give yourself permission to begin. You are allowed to be new. You are allowed to learn. You are allowed to change direction. You are allowed to fail without disappearing. You are allowed to become better than your first attempt. These permissions matter because many people are waiting for the world to say, "You are ready now." The world may never say it. You must decide that readiness will be built through movement. Another hidden form of fear is perfectionistic comparison. You see someone doing what you want to do at an advanced level and immediately feel behind. Instead of being inspired, you become discouraged. Their success becomes evidence that your beginning is too small. But you are not seeing the full timeline. You are comparing your private beginning with their public result. This is an unfair comparison. Their current ability was built through years of attempts you did not witness. Use successful people as proof that growth is possible, not proof that you are too late. Study their process, not only their result. You are not required to be the best when you begin. You are required to be honest enough to begin where you are. Fear of failure also keeps you attached to easy tasks. You remain busy, but avoid what matters. You answer messages, reorganize files, make lists, clean your space, and handle minor responsibilities. At the end of the day, you feel tired, yet the important work remains untouched. This is productive avoidance. You are not doing nothing, but you are doing everything except the task that could expose you to failure. Ask yourself each morning, what task am I most tempted to avoid because it matters? That task often deserves your first focused energy. Do it before easier work creates the illusion of progress. The important task may feel uncomfortable because it has consequences. Completing it may change your life. That is exactly why fear surrounds it. Do not interpret resistance as proof that you should stop. Resistance may be evidence that the work matters. You should learn to tolerate the emotional gap between effort and reward. Many goals require long periods where nothing appears to be working. You study before the grade improves. You train before your body changes. You create before the audience arrives. You save before financial security is visible. During this period, fear whispers that your effort is useless. It says you may be wasting time. It says you should quit before disappointment becomes larger. But invisible progress is still progress. Skills may be developing before results appear. Your ability to focus may be strengthening. Your judgment may be improving. Your work may be becoming better, even if the numbers have not changed. Do not demand immediate proof from every effort. Some forms of growth are underground before they become visible. You need enough patience to allow the process to work. This does not mean blindly repeating a failing strategy forever. Review your progress, adjust intelligently, and continue. Patience and feedback must work together. Fear says, if the result is not immediate, it will never come. Wisdom says, study the result, improve the method, and give the process enough time. There may be goals you have delayed for years because failure would feel too personal. Perhaps you want to return to education, change careers, start something of your own, improve your health, leave a damaging environment, or share your creative work. The delay may now be causing more pain than failure would have caused. You have protected yourself from one possible disappointment by accepting continuous regret. Ask yourself, what is the cost of never trying? People often calculate the risk of action but ignore the risk of inaction. You think about what could happen if you fail, but not what will happen if you remain unchanged. Another year may pass, your confidence may become weaker, the opportunity may disappear, your health may decline, regret may grow. Action has risk, but so does avoidance. The difference is that action gives you a chance to grow. Avoidance guarantees that the current situation continues. You do not need to make one enormous leap today. Choose one action that moves you out of hiding. Send the message, submit the application, publish the work, begin the course, ask the question, make the first appointment, start the first page. Do not make the action dependent on confidence. Make confidence dependent on the action. After you act, Pay attention to what happens. You may still feel fear, but you will also feel relief. The task that occupied your mind has entered reality. You now have information. The unknown becomes smaller. Even when the result is disappointing, you may discover something powerful. You survived it. The fear promised destruction, but you remained. You are still capable of another decision. This is how fear loses its disguise. You begin to see that what looked like laziness was often protection. Then you can stop attacking yourself and start addressing the real problem. You do not need more shame. You need more courage. You do not need another label. You need another attempt. You do not need to prove that you will never fail. You need to prove that failure cannot permanently stop you. The next time you call yourself lazy, pause. Ask what you may be afraid of. Are you afraid the work will expose your current ability? Are you afraid of judgment? Are you afraid of rejection? Are you afraid that success will change your life? Are you afraid of discovering that the path is harder than you hoped? Name the fear clearly. A named fear is easier to confront than a vague feeling of weakness. Then reduce the task. Decide what can be done today. Prepare for an imperfect result. Accept that discomfort will appear. Move before your mind creates another excuse. You are not here to protect an imaginary version of your potential. You are here to turn that potential into evidence. Your first attempt may not impress anyone. Your second may still feel weak. Your progress may be slower than you hoped. Continue. You do not become powerful by never failing. You become powerful when failure stops controlling your decisions. The life you want will require you to risk disappointment. It will require you to be seen learning. It will require you to enter situations without guarantees. It will require you to choose growth over the safety of excuses. Fear has stolen enough time while wearing the mask of laziness. Take off the mask. You are not incapable. You are afraid, and fear is not a command. Begin before you feel ready. Fail without abandoning yourself. Learn without insulting your beginning. Return after every setback. The moment you stop protecting yourself from every possible failure is the moment your real life finally begins. 8. Destroy the lazy identity and become a person of action. The most dangerous habit is not sleeping too long, delaying difficult work, or reaching for your phone whenever life becomes uncomfortable. Those behaviors can be changed. The deeper danger is the identity you build around them. The moment you begin saying, "I am lazy," you stop describing a temporary pattern and start defining who you are. Once that label becomes part of your identity, every weak decision begins to feel natural. You no longer think, "I avoided the task today." You think, "This is just what people like me do." That small shift gives your habits permission to continue. An identity is powerful because your mind naturally looks for evidence that confirms what you already believe. If you believe you are lazy, you will notice every unfinished task, every late morning, every moment of distraction, and every promise you failed to keep. You will ignore the days when you worked hard, helped someone, solved a problem, survived difficulty, or completed something despite exhaustion. Your mind will collect proof for the identity you repeat most often. This is why simply trying harder does not always create lasting change. You may force yourself to follow a strict routine for several days, but if your internal story remains the same, the old behavior eventually returns. Deep inside, you still see yourself as someone who quits, delays, and avoids responsibility. When pressure appears, you return to the person you believe yourself to be. Lasting transformation begins when you stop asking only, "What should I do?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming through what I repeatedly do?" Every action is a vote for an identity. When you get out of bed after the alarm, you vote for the person who keeps their word. When you begin the task before you feel ready, you vote for the person who acts without waiting for motivation. When you put your phone away and protect your focus, you vote for someone who values their future more than temporary stimulation. One action may feel small, But identities are built through repeated evidence. You do not need to become a completely different person overnight. You need to stop strengthening the identity that has kept you trapped. Each time you say, "I am lazy," you make the cage stronger. Replace that statement with something more accurate. "I have practiced habits that make action difficult, but I am learning to change them." This does not deny your weaknesses. It separates your behavior from your permanent identity. You are not your worst routine. You are not the missed opportunities, the unfinished projects, or the years you regret. Those things are part of your history, but they are not instructions for your future. You are still capable of making a new decision in the present. The lazy identity often begins through repetition. Perhaps you were called lazy when you were younger. Maybe someone compared you with a more active sibling, student, friend, or colleague. Perhaps you struggled with focus, and people assumed you did not care. After hearing the label enough times, you may have accepted it without questioning whether it was true. Sometimes the label came from your own disappointment. You set goals, failed to follow through, and used one harsh word to explain everything. Calling yourself lazy seemed easier than examining the real reasons behind the behavior. Perhaps you lacked structure. Perhaps your goal was unclear. Perhaps fear was controlling you. Perhaps your environment constantly distracted you. Perhaps you were exhausted, discouraged, or trying to build a life you did not truly want. Lazy became a simple explanation for a complicated problem. But a label does not solve anything. It only creates shame. Shame makes you focus on what is wrong with you instead of what needs to change around you. You stop studying your habits and begin attacking your character. This can make action even harder because every task becomes another test of whether you are good enough. To destroy the lazy identity, you must become curious instead of cruel. When you avoid something important, ask why. Do not immediately insult yourself. Examine the moment. Was the task too vague? Were you afraid of failing? Did you leave distractions nearby? Were you waiting for motivation? Did you make the plan too extreme? Were you trying to complete too much at once? Did you lack a clear reason to care? A person of action studies their patterns. They do not excuse weakness, but they refuse to misunderstand it. They know that accurate diagnosis creates change, while shame only creates more hiding. Becoming a person of action does not mean becoming someone who never rests. Rest is not laziness. Recovery is not weakness. There will be days when your body and mind genuinely need to slow down. A person of action understands that rest supports the mission. Laziness uses rest to escape the mission. The difference is intention. Rest says, "I am recovering so I can return stronger." Escape says, "I do not want to face what must be done." Rest has a boundary. Escape keeps extending itself. Rest restores energy. Escape often leaves you more anxious, guilty, and dissatisfied. You must learn to recognize this difference without lying to yourself. Sometimes you are tired, sometimes you are avoiding. Wisdom is knowing which one is true. A new identity cannot be built through dramatic statements alone. You may look in the mirror and declare that you are unstoppable, but if your actions remain unchanged, the words will have little power. Your mind believes evidence. That is why the first goal is not to become extraordinary. The first goal is to become reliable. Choose one behavior that represents the identity you want. It might be starting work at the same time every morning, completing one important task before checking your phone, walking every day, writing one page, studying for 30 minutes, or preparing tomorrow's priorities before going to sleep. The action should be clear, realistic, and repeatable. Then keep doing it until it becomes evidence. Do not underestimate what happens when you repeatedly watch yourself follow through. At first, the action may feel forced. You may still hear the old voice saying, "This will not last." Let the voice speak while you continue. Every completed day weakens it. Eventually, the evidence becomes stronger than the old story. This is how identity changes. Not through one perfect week, but through enough proof that the former label no longer fits. You must also stop waiting to feel like a person of action before acting like one. Identity usually follows behavior. You do not need to feel disciplined to perform a disciplined action. You do not need to feel confident to make a confident decision. You do not need to feel focused before removing distractions. Feelings often arrive after the behavior has begun. Action sends a message to the mind. This is who we are becoming now. One of the biggest mistakes is believing that action must always be large. When people imagine productive individuals, they picture endless work, extreme routines, and perfect days. This image can become intimidating. You may think that unless you can maintain that level, there is no reason to begin. But a person of action is not someone who performs at maximum intensity every day. It is someone who keeps moving at a level they can sustain. Some days the action will be powerful, other days it may be small. The identity survives because the person refuses to disappear completely. On a strong day, you may work for 3 hours. On a difficult day, you may complete 20 focused minutes. Both actions preserve momentum. The smaller one may even be more important because it proves that your behavior no longer depends entirely on mood. Your minimum standard protects your identity. Decide what you will do on your worst reasonable day. Perhaps your normal goal is to exercise for an hour, but your minimum is 10 minutes. Perhaps your normal writing target is 1,000 words, but your minimum is 100. The minimum is not an excuse to avoid effort. It is a bridge that prevents temporary weakness from becoming complete abandonment. You must stop using perfection as the price of progress. The lazy identity becomes stronger every time you quit because your performance was imperfect. You miss one day and decide the routine is broken. You lose focus for an hour and waste the rest of the day. You make one mistake and treat the entire week as a failure. A person of action does not demand a flawless path. They recover quickly. They understand that mistakes are part of movement. Their strength is not perfect control. Their strength is the speed at which they return. This is one of the most important changes you can make. Stop identifying with the mistake and begin identifying with the return. You may say, "I am the kind of person who comes back quickly." That identity is far more realistic and powerful than pretending you will never fail. It removes the pressure of perfection while protecting your direction. The old identity may still appear during difficult moments. When the alarm rings, it may say, "Stay in bed." When the work becomes boring, it may say, "Check your phone." When the results are slow, it may say, "This is not working." You do not destroy the old identity by arguing with every thought. You destroy it by refusing to obey. Thoughts are not votes, actions are. You may still feel lazy while acting. You may still feel afraid while beginning. You may still feel distracted while returning your attention to the task. The transformation is not that uncomfortable feelings vanish. The transformation is that they lose control over your behavior. A person of action is not free from resistance. They have simply learned that resistance is not an instruction. Your environment must support the identity you are building. It is difficult to become focused in a space designed for distraction. It is difficult to become disciplined when every temptation is immediately available. You cannot depend on willpower while keeping the old world unchanged around you. Look at your room, phone, schedule, relationships and routines. What identity are they encouraging? If your phone is the first thing you touch in the morning, you are beginning the day as a consumer. If your workspace is filled with distractions, you are making avoidance easy. If your friends constantly mock ambition or invite you away from your priorities, they may be strengthening the old version of you. If your days have no structure, every important action becomes a negotiation. Design your environment as if your future depends on it, because in many ways it does. Place the tools of progress where they are visible. Remove the distractions you repeatedly fail to resist. Prepare before the moment of action. Decide what tomorrow's first important task will be before you go to sleep. Make the better choice easier to begin. This is not weakness. Intelligent people do not place themselves inside unnecessary battles. They reduce the number of decisions that require willpower. You also need to protect your new identity from people who only recognize the old one. Some people may continue treating you like the person you used to be. They may remind you of your past failures, laugh at your new standards, or assume your change will not last. Their reaction can be painful because part of you may still fear they are right. Do not waste energy trying to convince them with speeches. Let repetition speak. They are responding to the evidence they have seen in the past. Your job is to create new evidence over time. You do not need everyone to believe in your transformation before it begins. You need to behave in a way that eventually makes the old opinion irrelevant. Be careful about telling everyone your new plans. Announcing change can feel like progress, but it may give you the reward before the work is complete. The mind enjoys the identity of being someone who is about to transform. It receives attention and encouragement without earning the result. Let your routine become private proof. Work quietly, build slowly. Allow your actions to become stronger than your promises. A person of action does not spend most of their energy explaining what they will do. They spend it doing what they said. You must also choose what deserves action. Being constantly busy is not the same as moving forward. Some people perform many small tasks to avoid the one that matters. They answer every message, reorganize everything, make endless lists, and remain occupied all day, but the important goal does not move. Action must be directed. Ask yourself, what single task would make today meaningful? Then protect time for it. Do not allow easy responsibilities to consume the energy needed for important work. The person of action is not someone who does everything. It is someone who repeatedly does what matters. This requires saying no. Every yes consumes time, attention, and energy. If you say yes to every request, every invitation, every distraction, and every emotional demand, your future will receive whatever remains. Often, nothing remains. Your new identity needs boundaries. You must be willing to disappoint people who expect constant access to you. This does not mean becoming selfish or uncaring. It means understanding that your purpose also deserves protection. A person of action respects time because they understand that time is life in invisible form. An hour wasted does not look dramatic, but enough wasted hours become wasted years. You may have already lost time. Do not use that fact to create more paralysis. Regret can either become another reason to remain stuck or a reason to change immediately. You cannot recover yesterday, but you can stop sacrificing today to yesterday's guilt. The old identity says, I have wasted too much time, so it is too late. The new identity says, I have wasted enough time, so I must begin now. The same past can create two different futures, depending on how you interpret it. You may be tempted to wait for a new month, a new year, a Monday, or a perfect season to begin. This is the old pattern searching for a clean emotional starting point. Real transformation rarely begins in perfect conditions. It begins in the middle of an ordinary day when you decide that another excuse will not control the next action. You do not need a symbolic date. You need a decision followed by behavior. Begin in the middle of the week. Begin after a disappointing morning. Begin with limited energy. Begin with the resources you currently have. Your first action does not need to be dramatic. It needs to be real. You should expect the new identity to feel unnatural at first. The mind prefers familiar patterns, even when they are harmful. When you begin acting differently, part of you may feel as if you are pretending. You may think, this is not really me. That feeling is normal. Every new version of you feels unfamiliar before it becomes natural. The fact that it feels strange does not mean it is false. It means it has not yet been repeated enough. Do not return to the old identity simply because it feels more familiar. Familiarity is not truth. It is repetition. The person you have been is the result of previous repetitions. The person you become will be the result of new ones. You must also separate your energy level from your moral worth. Some days you will have less strength. You may be sick, emotionally drained, or carrying heavy responsibilities. Do not turn every low-energy day into evidence that the old identity has returned. Action can change form. On a difficult day, action may mean protecting your minimum. It may mean recovering intentionally, asking for help, simplifying the task, or preparing to return tomorrow. What matters is honesty. Are you making a wise adjustment, or are you using difficulty as permission to disappear? Only you can answer that truthfully. The person of action learns to negotiate with reality without negotiating away the goal. They may change the route, reduce the pace, or extend the timeline, but they refuse to abandon the direction. This flexibility is strength. Rigid plans often break. Strong identities adapt. You should create a simple daily question. What would the person I am becoming do next? Not what would they do perfectly, not how would they transform everything today. What would they do next? Perhaps they would stand up, turn off the phone, complete the first paragraph, prepare a healthy meal, respond honestly, take the walk, make the call, or go to sleep on time. The next action is usually smaller than the dramatic transformation your mind imagines. Your life changes through the quality of these next decisions. When you repeat the question, you create distance from the old automatic pattern. You stop asking what is easiest and begin asking what aligns with your new identity. There will be moments when the answer is obvious but uncomfortable. This is where the identity is built most strongly. Anyone can act when the task is exciting. The real vote happens when the action is boring, difficult, unseen, or emotionally inconvenient. The person you become is shaped less by what you do at your best, and more by what you repeatedly choose when nobody is watching. Private decisions create public results. The body, skill, business, confidence, focus, and life you want will eventually reveal what you did in silence. You cannot fake repeated action forever. The result may be delayed, but behavior leaves evidence. This should encourage you. You do not need to control when the world notices. You need to control whether you continue building. Avoid becoming obsessed with visible results too early. If you demand constant proof, you may quit during the stage when the identity is still forming. Your first victory is not the external transformation. It is becoming the person capable of producing it. The stronger body begins with becoming someone who trains. The completed book begins with becoming someone who writes. The successful future begins with becoming someone who works before the reward arrives. The peaceful mind begins with becoming someone who controls attention. The identity comes before the visible outcome. This is why the early stage matters so much. You are not only completing tasks, you are changing the relationship between your words and actions. You are teaching yourself that decisions have meaning. You are becoming someone who can be trusted with larger opportunities. A person who cannot protect 30 minutes will struggle to protect a major dream. A person who abandons every small promise will not suddenly become reliable when the opportunity becomes larger. The small actions are training. Do not despise them. When you make your bed, complete a short workout, finish the page or resist the distraction. The action may seem too small to matter, but you are practicing obedience to your own decisions. You are strengthening the ability to act before excuses become stronger. Eventually, larger goals become possible because the foundation is no longer weak. You must also learn to reward action wisely. If every difficult task is followed by hours of uncontrolled distraction, you may reinforce the old habit. Choose rewards that restore you without pulling you back into the trap. Enjoy rest, entertainment, food, and social time, but let them remain choices rather than automatic escapes. The person of action does not reject pleasure. They refuse to let pleasure control the order of their life. Work before reward. Responsibility before escape. purpose before impulse. This simple order can rebuild your entire day. Do not expect one chapter, one speech, or one emotional moment to transform you permanently. Inspiration can open the door, but only action can carry you through it. You may feel powerful now, but the true test will come later when this feeling fades. Prepare for that moment. Decide what you will do when motivation disappears. Create the minimum, remove the distraction, schedule the task, protect the environment, make the next action obvious. The goal is to reduce the space where the old identity can negotiate. When the voice says, "Start tomorrow," answer through movement. When it says, "You have already failed," return. When it says, "This small action does not matter," remember that identity is built through small evidence. Do not debate for an hour. Act for 5 minutes. Action creates clarity faster than argument. You may still experience setbacks. You may lose several days, return to old habits, or feel disappointed by your progress. Do not turn the setback into a resurrection of the old identity. One difficult period does not erase every vote you cast for the new person. Review what happened, correct the system, and return without drama. The strongest people are not those who never fall into old patterns. They are those who recognize the pattern earlier, remain there for less time, and return with greater intelligence. Progress can be measured by the speed of recovery. Perhaps in the past, one bad day became a bad month. Now, let it remain one bad day. Later, it may become one bad hour. Eventually, you may interrupt the pattern within minutes. This is real growth. Even if it does not look dramatic, you are becoming more conscious, more responsible, and less willing to abandon yourself. There is a point where the new identity begins to feel natural. You wake up and begin without an internal battle. You protect your time because distraction no longer feels worth the cost. You complete tasks because unfinished promises feel heavier than temporary discomfort. People may call you disciplined, focused, or driven, but you will know the truth. You were not born that way. You built it through thousands of decisions that nobody celebrated. That realization is powerful because it means you can continue rebuilding any area of your life. Identity is not fixed, it is trained. You can train yourself to focus. You can train yourself to finish. You can train yourself to face discomfort. You can train yourself to return after failure. You can train yourself to act before motivation arrives. The old lazy identity was trained through repetition. The new identity will be built the same way. Choose the repetition carefully. Do not wait until you believe completely. Belief will grow as evidence grows. Start with a small amount of faith in what you could become, then support it with action. You do not need to say, "I am unstoppable." Say, "I will complete the next task." Then complete it. You do not need to promise that you will never quit again. Promise that you will not quit today. You do not need to rebuild your whole life before sunset. Rebuild 1 hour. This is how dramatic change actually begins. Quietly, practically, and without applause. Your greatest battle is not against laziness. It is against the story that says laziness is who you are. Behaviors can be interrupted. Habits can be redesigned. Environments can be changed. Skills can be learned. Confidence can be rebuilt. Nothing about the old pattern deserves to become your permanent name. Stop introducing yourself to your future through your past. You are not the person who always delays. You are the person learning to begin. You are not the person who always quits. You are the person learning to return. You are not the person who cannot focus. You are the person training attention. You are not the person who wastes every opportunity. You are the person preparing to respect the next one. The language matters because it gives movement a direction. But remember, language must be followed by proof. Create that proof today. Choose one task you have been avoiding. Make it smaller if necessary, but do not remove it. Put the phone away. Set a clear period. Begin before you feel ready. Stay when the first discomfort appears. Complete what you promised. even if the result is imperfect. When you finish, do not dismiss the action because it was small. Recognize what happened. You acted in opposition to the old identity. You created evidence for the new one. Tomorrow, create another piece of evidence. Soon, you will not need to force yourself to believe you are changing. Your life will begin showing you. The unfinished work will become completed. The weak promises will become stronger. The distracted hours will become focused. The fear will still speak, but it will no longer lead. The future will stop feeling like something you merely imagine and begin becoming something you are building. You were never sentenced to remain the person your worst habits created. The door was never permanently locked, but nobody can walk through it for you. The final decision is yours. Remain loyal to the identity that has stolen your time, weakened your confidence, and kept your potential trapped. Or begin behaving like the person your future desperately needs. You do not have to feel powerful. You only have to act. Stand up. Begin the task. Keep the promise. Return when you fail. Protect your focus. Repeat what works. Let your actions become your new name. Destroy the lazy identity, not through hatred, shame, or empty motivation, but through daily evidence that it no longer describes you. You are not waiting to become a person of action. The moment you take the next necessary step, you already are. You were never lazy. You were trapped by comfort, distracted by easy rewards, weakened by broken promises, and controlled by fears you never learned to name. But now you see the trap, and once you can see it, you no longer have to live inside it. Do not wait for another perfect morning, another burst of motivation, or another year to begin. Choose one action today. Keep one promise, finish one task. Prove to yourself that the old identity no longer controls you. Your future will not be changed by what you understand. It will be changed by what you do next. So stand up, protect your focus, face the discomfort, and become the person who acts. The lazy trap ends here. Your new life begins with the next decision.